It's another edition of Musical Shenanigans. Today we're talking about 4 of the 8 artists that have 5 or more albums in the Rolling Stones Top 500 Albums list. So stay tuned for thoughtful and profound discussions about the Beatles, Neil Young, David Bowie, and Kanye. Or listen to this show. All right, this is Cory.
This is Dave.
This is Scott.
And this is, this is Musical Shenanigans once again back for more fun.
We've returned, hi!
And this time, we're taking on 4 artists that all have, I think it was 5 or more albums in the top 500.
Yeah.
And this week, we are covering, in order, the Beatles, Neil Young, David Bowie, and Kanye.
Grueling this week. 25 albums in total. Literally 5% of the entire list.
Yeah, some of us are drinking because of that.
Yeah, I'm imbibing a little too. Let's start easy. Let's pick the Beatles. Overall thoughts on the artists.
Can we really badmouth them? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, no. So much absolute influence. Like, it's even if you picked out the songs that are generally considered their absolute worst, it's still hard to argue with the overall act.
For me, out of those 5, and honestly, I thought all those albums kind of deserved to be there. Sgt. Pepper was that one.
Yeah, they actually grew to hate that album because it was one of these deals where it was so good and people just raved about it so much that became the benchmark about where they were judged. Everything they did after that was, well, it's good, but it's no Sgt. Pepper's.
Well, yeah. You do something that good, and then you better at least follow it up with something as strong.
Yeah, exactly.
Very experimental, very out there. And this was the direct result of Pet Sounds.
Yeah, this was one of the first pop albums to not have any breaks between the individual tracks. And later, when Pink Floyd made Dark Side of the Moon, Roger Waters was quoted as saying that was kind of his inspiration, to just go from one song right into the next with no breaks.
But I think we can overall say that they're great. I feel like the albums they left off could have been on there too.
I'm not a huge Beatles fan, but I respect them very much as artists, and just as they were really groundbreaking back in the day. I mean, they did things that no one else had done. They came up with some ideas that no one else had tried. For
a band with so much influence on music thereafter, it's amazing when you take a step back and say they were actually only a band for about a decade. Mm-hmm. And their entire discography was recorded in 7 years.
Look at all the genres they covered in that 7 years.
Oh, God, yeah.
I love most about them was the chances they took. They said, you know what, this is what we've been known for, was, the earlier stuff, but they're like, no, we're going to do something different. We're going to throw something completely from left field at you.
They threw shit like Come Together out there, which at the time was like, what?
And it's not even just the musical styles, it's just some of the stuff they were doing in the studio that nobody was doing before.
Yeah.
Especially when they got to like Rubber Soul and beyond.
And up until the White Album and Sgt. Pepper's, these songs all clocked in under 3 minutes.
Yeah, that's true.
And they were solid. They got in, they made their point, they got out.
They had a hook, they had a groove, and they made their point, like you said, and they got out. And that's really, I think, how a good song is. You don't need 5-6 minutes on a song most of the time.
Some of that stuff, again, that they were doing in the studio, like recording backwards and using tape loops and close miking. And I think I saw that on one song, Lennon actually sang with a microphone wired into a Leslie speaker, which for people at home who don't know what a Leslie speaker is, it's a speaker that was made to go with a rock organ. And there's actually a rotating cabinet that gives it this kind of warbling effect. This was the first time I think anybody had ever tried singing a vocal through that speaker, so you had that sort of warble in his voice.
Okay, I think we can stop there. We're all happy with the Beatles. That's why it was first. We can start easy. Take a breath. Release. Okay. Neil Young.
From the band that recorded Drive My Car to the man who recorded Ride My Llama.
Nice.
About the nicest thing I can say is that he married Daryl Hannah.
I will say, he is an American voice, although, through a Canadian PA system. He's a hell of an activist, environmentalist. He's a humanitarian. He's one of the co-founders of Farm Aid.
Sure.
The man does a lot of great stuff, and there are plenty of his songs I do actually like. And this was
Yes.
something we covered before, is that there are times when Neil Young can sing. I just think he chooses not to most of the time.
And that's the biggest problem. And I don't think we've actually talked about the reason we're all sort of groaning a little bit here, which is that voice, right? He's a very talented songwriter, great, very good lyrics at times. It's just he chooses to use that high-pitched, whiny voice. And it is a choice, because there are songs that he does not use it on. But he chooses to use that high-pitched voice, and it is just so off-putting to me.
You can only take so much. It's kind of like what my buddy says about bluegrass. He goes, I like bluegrass. I can listen to maybe 1-2 songs, and you got to turn that shit the fuck off.
Yeah.
So with Neil Young, I can listen to him for a while, and then we have to stop.
Yeah, I gotta admit, that was a really tough bunch of albums to listen through.
His hits are obviously the ones where he's not whining.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, like Cinnamon Girl.
Needle in the Damage Done.
I love that song.
Rockin' in a Free World.
Southern Man, Heart of Gold. I mean, great songs, and he's not whining. He's singing.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's a choice. And there was actually even one song where he was in the middle of doing his little whiny Neil Young thing. And not only was he doing the whiny thing, but at one point he hits the top of his range and his voice actually cracked, like Peter Brady on the Brady Bunch. It was god-awful.
And at some point, some engineer went, yeah, we'll leave that.
Yeah, that's the one. I did like, as I was listening to these albums, there was one thing that, like, on 2 of the albums that I liked. I don't even know if it necessarily worked musically, but I liked the idea. Tonight's the Night was one of the albums, and that was also a title track on the album. And there was a part 1 and part 2. The first track on the album was Tonight's the Night part 1. The last track on the album was Tonight's the Night part 2. And they were the exact same song, but they were just done in totally different styles. Like, he opens it, he sings the song in sort of this bluesy, minimal, heavy bass kind of jazzy vibe. And then when he closes, it becomes more of this sort of Delta blues style. And then he does that again on Rust Never Sleeps. He started with, Hey, Hey, My.
Yeah.
And the last track is the same thing, except the first time it's acoustic, the second time it's electric. It was just an interesting concept.
I really like that track. That was one of my favorite tracks of his.
And it was recorded live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, these were not studio releases. He released them as live tracks.
Yeah, he's one of those artists that kind of fits in with the, quote, jam bands a little bit.
Well, I think a lot of people view him as really the precursor, too, to grunge music and, like, Nirvana and all that.
Sure, yeah.
In fact, actually, Kurt Cobain's Suicide Note actually quoted, "It's better to burn out than fade away," right in the Suicide Note.
He has that angst.
He does, and I think that's what carries him.
And I certainly believe he belongs in the top 500.
Yes.
Yes.
Is he a favorite? No.
And not all of these albums either.
Correct.
I would say 2 of them. Tonight's the Night, I like. The early one, Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere, that had Cinnamon Girl, and maybe Harvest.
I liked Harvest Moon.
Well, there was Harvest and there was Harvest Moon, right?
There were 2 of them.
Two different albums.
Okay.
I could have gotten them confused too, but I wrote Harvest.
Kind of a shitty marketing approach.
I wrote Harvest Moon, so that's what I said.
We're just going to say, was it Harvest or Harvest Moon? Yes.
Yes.
And I don't think we have anything else to say on them.
Nope, agreed. Definitely belongs on the list, just maybe in a more scaled back capacity.
Yeah,
Yes.
you could have done a greatest hits with.
But I wouldn't have included Keep on Rockin' in the Free World. That, you know how many times he says that in that song?
Really? You guys don't like that tune?
I do, but I've played it. And I have to tell you, that chorus goes on and on and on. When I filled in for the Dedic Theologists,
Oh yeah.
they played that song. And one of the biggest mistakes was they gave me their drummer's headset mic. He was
Nice.
sick, so I was filling in for him. And I got bored just singing Keep on Rockin' in the Free World, and my brain went, well, what rhymes? So in the background, I started singing Got Caught Fucking at SeaWorld. Got caught fucking at SeaWorld.
Oh my God. Well, yeah, that sounds like you.
But it only came through on the monitors. Apparently they knew better than to put me through the main.
But I'll tell you, I mean, back to the main thing, Cory, you kind of launched that by saying that, you didn't necessarily believe that song would have belonged on the list. But that's a perfect example. Like, just the fact that every band in the world has covered that song tells you what a big song it was.
Oh, absolutely. And Hurricane. I mean, they were later songs that were brilliant.
Neil Young will remember that a Southern man don't need him around anyhow. Just gonna say that.
Just gonna say that. I think that's a perfect point to move on to David Bowie.
Saint Bowie, yes.
Yeah, going back to the Beatles influence here, I mean, this guy, what was interesting about Bowie is not just his reinvention musically on every album, but the fact that he would create entire characters and sort of live his life as that character until the next album came out. And he was, back to the Beatles influence, he was actually inspired by Sgt. Pepper's, the idea of like the Beatles going out and creating this alter ego that prompted him to go do the same thing.
He brought that artistic flair.
Yep.
Yes.
That just jumps out on everything he did.
If there's a term in music for method acting, that was Bowie.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's what I love about him, is what I love about the Beatles. He went for different sounds, different genres, and the experimental, the different characters. He took chances.
Absolutely. The Ziggy Stardust, Aladdin Sane, the Thin White Duke. I mean, he just kept reinventing himself over and over again.
Even in his later albums, he did that.
I was surprised Black Star didn't make it on here.
Yeah, I was a little surprised at that too, because it was a very good album.
Yeah.
He knew it was his last album. When I listened to these albums, there were so many pieces that was in Black Star. It was like he created a greatest hits, but with newer songs.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back after, now that you've heard these albums, go back and listen to Black Star. You will, especially Station to Station, or Low.
Both, actually, I think.
They have those feels in those songs.
Interesting.
Since we're talking about the albums, any high points, anything anyone wants to mention?
Honestly, the musicianship on his albums, like Spiders from Mars, just the musicianship, the guitar playing in particular, was really spectacular.
Absolutely. If my favorite out of all the ones I had on the list, Station to Station or Low, was probably a little bit of a toss-up between both. I actually liked all those instrumentals. I thought they were kind of musically interesting, personally. It's sort of Brian Eno-ish.
Brian Eno was brilliant, is
brilliant,
Is.
I think Low, the reason actually that it had all those instrumentals on it was he played the lead in a movie called The Man Who Fell to Earth.
Yes.
He was writing this album at the same time, and the idea was going to be that he was writing the soundtrack to the movie as well. And he found out that wasn't actually part of the deal, and they didn't really want his music. He got kind of pissed and just went off and released it as an album anyway. But all those instrumentals, I think it was because it was supposed to be incidental music on the movie.
It's very good.
Yeah, it is very good.
Station to Station, which was I think was my other favorite one, is it's interesting there because according to Bowie, he doesn't remember that album at all. Because he was so heavily into coke. I mean, when he picked up and moved to Berlin, it was because of how coke addicted he was. He was having severe psychological side effects. He was having hallucinations. So when he finally sort of hit the wall and realized he needed to go get help, that was when he kind of picked up, I think, and left L.A. and headed to Berlin just mainly to get out of the drug scene.
And that one's got golden years.
Yeah.
I love that song.
Yeah, that's a brilliant song.
One more thing about Bowie. I was just looking at my notes here. We talked about Sgt. Pepper's earlier with Good Morning, Good Morning. That was that Good Morning, Good Morning. Lennon stole that from a Kellogg's Cornflakes commercial that was airing at the time they were recording the album.
Yes.
Scary Monsters and Super Creeps. Bowie got the title from toys they were giving away in boxes of Kellogg's Cornflakes.
Nice.
I like it. I like the
Nice.
tie. All right, so now we need to take a moment to talk about our sponsor, the Shaman Super Center. Folks down there have sent us all a little care package, so we all got something different. And Larry down there wanted us to kind of talk about the store. I mean, I know you all hadn't been there before. What was y'all's experience?
Well, Larry was great. I mean, showed me around. It's just an amazing center there, but I mean, it really, you're right. Some of the products they sent over were just fantastic. I actually got this little sort of copper wire pyramid thing that goes on your head for meditation. I have to tell you, I mean, I was kind of feeling down. My chakras were off. I didn't feel the chi flowing. Tried it out. By the way, they also threw out this great little pendant too, this chakra healing energy pendant. I will say this, guys, if you buy stuff at the Shaman Super Center, please make sure you read the directions. Don't be like me, because I did not realize the pendant and the pyramid, you should not use those at the same time. And I was in the middle of a Native American medicine wheel in Sedona, Arizona, totally naked, no idea how I got there. Yeah, there's like a wolf there. He's talking to me. Of course, I don't understand a word because I don't speak Navajo. I'm trying to figure out what the hell I'm going to do to get out of there. Fortunately, a giant eagle appears. He had a Tommy Bahama shirt and a pair of cargo shorts, so I could get dressed. That was nice. Got dressed, found my way down to Phoenix, got back, but just an overall scary experience. So again, just be careful. Make sure you ask questions. They will answer any questions you've got down there.
The customer service down there is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I gotta say, Larry turned me on to some anal bleaching soap. It worked a charm. it stung a little at first, and then it kind of made it itch a bit, but after like half an hour, it kind of calmed down, and I was like, yeah, I felt a lot more centered after that, a lot cleaner. So, I went back and I thanked Larry, and he was like, you could put a little lidocaine on that. It helps. I was like, yeah, that's a good point. So, like you were saying with the pendant, and the pyramid, don't mix. It's like, go easy on the anal bleaching stones. Yeah.
Read the directions.
Absolutely. Directions are important.
All I got was like this little rubber play toy. It's got like a hand on the end of it all clenched. I thought it was a fight the power thing, like a Black Panther. It's nice because it's got like a little sucker piece you can put like right on the floor. It stands straight up. I play like Rock'em Sock'em with it, like smack it, it comes back up, and you hit it, it comes back. It stands erect every time. Now, what was also cool was I also got like this pack of gels with it too.
Nice.
All these different flavors like strawberry, knee-high grape, raspberry, snozzberry, and pine. Now, what's weird is, they really smell nice, but they got the same consistency of like Kentucky jelly. I couldn't really figure it out. But I'm telling you, the little thing with the little fist on it, I hold it up to like the neighbors. I'm like, yeah, fight the power. I'm waving that thing around.
Well, I got a Kanye West t-shirt the other day, but
at the Shaman Super Center? Wow. They really do have everything.
They have everything.
Yeah, no, but listen, obviously they're great down there, and they did want us to mention if you spend $200 or more, they will throw in a free 6-pack of sparkling ayahuasca. It is cool and refreshing, but be careful, it's got a little extra kick.
Well, Larry, we just can't rave about you enough, and your products are great. Like you say, you come down for the healing and stay for the love.
Absolutely.
It's just wonderful.
Praise Satan.
All right, and now back to our show. Take a deep breath.
We're going to do it, huh?
Stretch.
Is this real? Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? Caught in a landslide.
No escape from this reality.
Let's just put something out there right now. Kanye West is a douchebag. The three of us know he's a douchebag. Anybody listening to this right now knows he's a douchebag. If you are Kanye West's biggest fan in the world, I suspect on some level you know that Kanye West is a douchebag. We stipulate that Kanye is a douchebag. But we are also capable of divorcing Kanye West the man from Kanye West the music. We're going to focus as much as possible on Kanye West the music. And I say this just because I think you are about to hear some awful things about Mr. West.
Thank you for issuing that caveat.
That's a very good point, Dave. Thank you.
So, who would like to go first?
So I'm going to start with he's not a rapper. We all know he's not a rapper.
Yeah.
Some of the background music though, right? Some of the actual mixes and beats and samples, pretty interesting, especially against the backdrop of what everybody else was doing. We're not hip hop guys on this podcast, obviously. If we're going to say, the Beatles deserved credit because they went out and tried to do something different, do credit to Kanye. He went out and tried to do something different. At the time he kind of broke through. Most hip hop was gangster rap. He didn't go there. He wrote about other topics, right? Relationships and money and jobs and all of that. So credit to Kanye for trying to do something different.
He even admits in the David Letterman interview that's on Netflix that even his rapping is not that strong. I found that to be incredibly humbling on his part to even admit that.
I've heard him say that he puts more effort into the backing track because he recognizes that that's not his strong suit.
His backing tracks, though, they sound like a car accident.
They are monotonous, but I tried to keep it in the time frame of it's dance music.
Is it?
And in dance,
Jesus Christ.
You bring it up. He's got hip hop, he's got dance, and you blend that together, and it's about repetition. But
I'll say this, it's not truly repetition if you listen to every single one of these albums. I actually sat through all of them, and he actually did change styles from album to album.
Oh, I didn't mean that. I meant like when he uses a sample or uses something in a song.
Over and in those 3 minutes, it's over and over again.
It's very repetitive throughout that song. But that's the kind of familiarity that people like in their songs.
Yeah.
Honestly, he reminds me of a dude with Tourette syndrome. His rapping style, though it's so chaotic, it's almost stuttering. Then when he can't find a rhyme, and he had 10 fucking people writing the lyrics on Yeezus, okay? 10 fucking people writing those lyrics, and he couldn't make the fucking things rhyme. Jesus Christ, what is wrong with that guy?
That's Jesus Christ.
That's Jesus Christ to you, yes. Oh, man.
I have to give credit to a lot of the swagger, a lot of the, the big ego, and he's better than everybody else, but you know where he gets it from? These kids grew up, they had MTV, and
True.
They saw the likes of David Lee Roth and Vince Neil and David Coverdale with these chicks and all the opulence. And you look at the rap and you see where they're just kind of putting everything out there. That's what they wanted. They wanted that rock and roll life.
He reminds me a lot of Two Live Crew.
Yes.
Hey, we want some pussy. I mean, he may as well have done that. Yeezus, that album, could have been a Two Live Crew album easily. He is completely disparaging of the LGBTQ community. He's completely disparaging of the black community. He does nothing to build up or empower women. The guy's a fucking asshole.
I said we're distinguishing between Kanye the man and Kanye the music, and Scott's talking about being an asshole in the music. So that's fair.
I'm talking about the music. Yeah.
I mean, his lyrics do portray that.
His musical style is, I'm a big fucking asshole, and for some inexplicable fucking reason, people like that shit.
The generation he's getting, look back at us. I mean, when we came up in the 70s, what did we have? We had like disco and yacht rock and the country crossover.
Yeah.
I mean, some of it we've been able to go back and kind of appreciate, but we were rebelling.
Yeah.
We were looking for something completely different. I mean, that's how we found metal. That's how we found prog rock.
We had punk too.
And we had punk.
Yeah.
And I mean, and punk is still out there, but I think that's what he brought. He brings something completely different, and these millennials and all that love him.
Oh boy. Okay, so
I will say, he's a weak rapper.
Yeah.
Yep.
But as a producer, he is trying to bring up young talent.
True.
And other people out there, and I could admire that.
I guess just to sum up, I will say this. I do admire his constantly being willing to try new things. I'm sure it would have been a lot more lucrative for him to just make the same album over and over again. There's on College Dropout, which was his first album. He had just gotten in this horrific car accident. His jaw was wired shut, and he still went in the studio and recorded a song with his jaw still wired.
Is that why that one sounds so much better?
Yeah, and then had the audacity to name the song "Through the Wire." But then that was sort of like the sound, I think, that original sound that everybody associates with Kanye, the big sort of maximalist sound. He could have kept doing that over and over again. But when you get to something like Yeezus, I jotted down, it sounds like Trent Reznor made a rap album.
He also worked with the dudes from
Daft Punk.
Daft Punk had a huge part of Yeezus.
I mean, so he's constantly trying new things. I will say there's even if I don't personally care for it, there's definitely a musical sensibility there.
Yeah.
When you have a list of 500 albums, can I make a case for Kanye being somewhere on this list? Yes. Somewhere, but not all of these albums.
No.
Not by a long shot.
No.
I would concede Graduation. I felt that was one of the strongest.
I like that. I'm like is a strong word, but
relative, subjective word.
All things being relative, I like that one. And Late
right.
Registration, I thought had Scott. I know you and I are going to disagree on this, but on Yeezus, there's the opening tune is called Black Skinhead, and I know you hate it. I actually like the musical vibe of that song.
There was a real drummer on that shit.
Yeah,
that's the one song on that album. Actually, that and New Slaves on Yeezus. New Slaves, it's just in general, the lyrics are they're so throwbacky to that whole Two Live Crew thing, and it's dude, just, wind that shit back some, man. Come on.
Actually, speaking of that, on Black Skinhead, I think he actually samples Rock and Roll Part 2 by Gary Glitter. You got it. That's sampling Gary Glitter in 2013 is a ballsy move. Considering what Gary Glitter was ultimately convicted of.
Yeah, he didn't age well. I can understand why he's in the top 500. I can even agree to having him in there. He has made a difference. He is trying to bring up others. When you sell 140 million singles, you must be connecting with somebody.
Yeah, you're doing more than just slick marketing. So I'll give him that much.
He's not pulling a one-shot Kajagoogoo kind of shit.
He's not, Right Said Fred, but he's certainly no Beatles either.
No.
Do all those albums deserve to be there? No.
I would say one. I would concede two tops.
top.
One of the one interesting thing that we didn't mention was back when we were talking about Bowie and especially the Ziggy Stardust album. The cover of that album is pretty iconic, and it was only recently that I was looking at the cover and I realized it's Bowie sort of on a dark street standing in front of a shop of some sort, and the sign hanging above his head says K West.
I saw that.
And it when I realized that, honestly, my first thought was, well, like, is Kanye West a stage name? Was he inspired by? Apparently no, it's just total coincidence. And I guess K West it was actually like a fur shop. They sell fur coats in London, and they were apparently like none too pleased that Bowie took this photo out front without their permission, because they didn't want to be fur coat store, right? They got a high end clientele. They didn't want to be associated with a rock musician.
Right.
Now, of course, 40 years later, they've totally embraced it. They actually have a plaque on the front marking the place where the album cover was shot.
All right. Next time, our 4 artists are the Rolling Stones, Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan, and Led Zeppelin.
Wait, that's almost normal.
Yes. We got the hardest one out first. All right. So thank you all.
Praise Satan.
Praise Satan. All right. Until next time. See ya.
See ya.